I'm sorry about that.
No, no.
What I'm gonna do.
It was about,
Are you Travis?
Yeah. I'll rename myself.
What?
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I couldn't put it on till this morning, and then I made you wait and approve it.
My wife will find it, sure.
I hope she does.
Not letting.
Thanks for doing that.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Totally.
I can still share, I think. Yeah, you can still share. Oh, yeah, those questions.
why don't you let me know when you guys are ready?
Share your screen and
Okay.
you can get to go.
Are we ready?
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. It's right at 5:30. So we'll have a, roll call.
Mullendorf,
Here.
Cornfield, here, Graham,
She's on her way.
Thank you, Mike.
Gunn,
Here.
Nordahl,
Here.
Thorson,
Not
Not
here.
yet. He's probably gonna be late.
Yeah. and Tupin.
Okay. All right, well, we'll start with, we have a quorum, so let's start with citizens' comments on matters within the board jurisdiction, and you have 3 minutes. So anybody here, any of the citizens? Yes,
I have
Mitch.
2 thank yous. The first thank you is for 3 pickleball nets, which Mike, thank you very much, Mike, delivered a couple mornings ago.
Somebody else did.
I don't think so. On Monday, we had 18 players out there, so it's really popular. People are loving it, and we so appreciate the nets and your support, so thank you. The second thank you, equally good, is from Beartooth Trails for your letter of recommendation for the feasibility study for the path on Highway 78 going down to the traffic circle. Letters like that really make a difference, and yours has helped, so thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mitch.
I always love to give thanks.
Well, that's nice. That's a great way to start a meeting out, isn't it? It can only go up from here.
I hope so.
Any other comments?
Can you stand here, or do you want me to move?
You can stand wherever you feel comfortable.
Michael Grouse, I just wanted to support the, idea of having a living fence, up by the observatory to shield some of the lights coming from the airport. I have for many years, 25 years, gone up on the bench and enjoyed looking at stars before the observatory was there. And, I'm really disturbed at the degradation of viewing, because of the super bright lights that shine now from the airport. And, I would suggest this body and the council in general, work with the airport, commission to get those at least on a timer to save energy, to save, money, and to minimize the light. I just don't see any reason for that to be on 24 hours a day, or at least 8 hours a day during the dark times. Security light that comes on when there's motion would seem to make a lot more sense. The last thing was, I was delighted looking through the budget that it seemed that we got $45,000 from the Arbor Day Foundation and maybe 10,000 more for watering. So I just wondered how, citizens interface with that program to, petition perhaps where some of those trees go. And I know I'm out of the loop a little bit, but, I'd be interested to hear that discussion later when you talk about it.
Okay. And I think, Mike, the amount was a little lower than that, wasn't it? The amount? Yeah. About 34,000? 38,000 and 10,000 extra for the watering, but yes, thank you.
Very generous.
Any other comments?
Sean Bryant, I'll make a couple of comments also. Just building on what Michael said, I would be in support of the item that talks about a living wall up there. I was up there last Friday night, talked to a lot of people, met some new friends that live in Red Lodge. I think the Whistler Observatory is a real great thing for the city of Red Lodge, especially for a town this size. So I am speaking in support of that. And, you know, it seems like Michael said, there should be something that the city, working with the county on the airport, on the city, county, airport commission, can do something about those lights. They're just obnoxious. you know, if they put them on motion sensor, if somebody moved and the lights went on, that actually means somebody's there, as opposed to those lights being on all night long. I am glad to see the trees, especially on, the park along the creek. Those are looking good. And then, I've seen them around town. I did write to the city 3 different times, trying to volunteer to help water those.
Oh.
I never got a reply. And I just would like, one last thing, to encourage, I've had the city, the ladies on the city council are really good of, replying when a resident sends a letter. But, I'd just like to encourage all city officials, if they get a email from a resident, I think it's worthy of a reply. And, I just want to make that comment, because I, as a resident, expect a reply when I take the time to share a problem. And it just seems like there's a trend where I don't think that's really caught on about doing a reply. So thank you for everything that the Parks, Board does. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks for your watering interest.
Yes.
And multiple attempts to support that, so hopefully we can figure something out.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
I volunteered time last year to audit all the sprinkler heads around the roundabout and gave a report of everything. Gave a recommendation to the Parks Department as far as getting that scheduled for repair. I think that dropped, which is a little sad, because we've all seen beautiful trees planted. And, just because you put a water bag on it, if you don't fill the water bags, the trees are gonna die. And so, I'm just trying to help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
No,
Mhm.
appreciate your help, for your offer, yes.
Hi, my name is Becky Gray. I'll do better if I sit and look at this.
That's fine.
I wrote this all out, so I'm going to,
Did you time it?
yes, I did. I'm really excited Red Lodge has an observatory to view the night sky. I hear very much about our children and the opportunities that they have available to them for the children to make choices. Choices like the observatory to help them decide what they may want to do for a career. And did you know the high school has an astronomy class that is using the observatory? Space will definitely be influencing our world. Let's provide more trained people in astronomy. I also thought we should discuss income generation. We're a tourist town. More families with children and or adults with an interest in astronomy will be coming to Red Lodge when they know Red Lodge has an observatory and promotes Dark Skies International. Red Lodge has good food, lodging, hiking, camping, a national forest with trees, and an observatory with excellent dark skies to see the heavens. And Yellowstone National Park with fellow dark sky users are here as well. Let's not ruin the economic draw for families with airport lighting, which destroys a family's viewing of the night skies. Van Dyke Park lighting should only be used where it's needed, when it's needed. I would like for the county commissioners to comply with the city lighting regulations and modify the fairground lights to stop light pollution trespass. My first ask is for the city of Red Lodge to ask the county commissioners to comply with city lighting regulations and modify the fairground lighting to stop light pollution trespass. Van Dyke Park lighting should only be used where it is needed and when it's needed. My second ask is it would be most appreciated if the Parks Board and Public Works would allow the planting of the living hedge fence in Van Dyke proposal.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Okay, well, we're gonna move on then to approval of the consent agenda and, the minutes of the August 7th, 2024, meeting. Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes? Any questions or a motion to approve? Move to approve. Second? Okay, moved and approved. All right, now we're gonna go into the discussion items. And the very first topic is the Observatory Living Fence proposal by Teresa Whistler. So Teresa, it's all yours.
Okay, so can put it up.
Do we
there.
have-
Do you want me to share instead of you?
If you've got it, then yeah, sure. Oh,
Teresa, I just called you Virginia, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right, I didn't even hear it.
Okay, good.
Apologies. Let me get rid of that.
That's, it's,
Green.
that's something on this screen, sorry.
oh.
I was looking at my screen and didn't realize that.
Okay, there we go.
I want to make sure I can do my arm waving.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want to interfere with your arm waving.
All right, so here we are. I'm Teresa Whistler. I run the Hero STEAM Center, which includes Red Lodge, Dark Skies, and the observatory. We have Artemis program for the elementary and middle schooler kids, Both Girls United, the whole bit. The observatory is a nice tie-in with STEAM education, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Everybody pretty much knows that by now. But here we are to date. This is a beautiful photo taken by Jeremy Battles. But what you'll notice as well, I rejected this as something I would want to have because it just reminds me about the lighting that is coming in from our neighbors across the street and lighting up the end of our observatory as well as the whole field, all the way across Van Dyke Park. And there's no reason for the whole of Van Dyke Park to be lit up 24/7, especially when we want to do some stargazing up there. So that's why we put a couple heads together. We're working with Tom Prosser, who knows a lot about trees. That was his business. And talking about how we would install a living fence, something that could provide habitat as well as a shield against the offending lights that trespass, glare, and glow from across the property, which is the de-annexed county property of the fairgrounds. So, I know that I've heard mention the airport. This is not really a matter for the airport. They are compliant in their lighting as far as I can tell. That is on city property and their lighting. Anything being developed now is going in with down shielding and everything. So I think that, I just wanted to clarify, this is coming from the county property of those fairground buildings across the road directly. Okay, so this, next slide, please. When we sited the observatory, literally, I went up and stood where it is today. And this is how dark it was. And you saw that first picture on the front of our presentation. This is what it looks like today, all lit up. This is what it looked like when we decided and sited that spot within Van Dyke Park and how dark it was. There were no lights on over at the fairgrounds on those buildings. Could I ask a question? Why did the lights get turned on after this point? I mean, it has been on for years and years, right? Never. I mean, how many decades have they been up there? They haven't needed lighting 24/7, and all of a sudden, they do. So, for whatever reason, we would like to start, mitigating and planning for the future, protecting of our sites out there in Van Dyke Field. If you go to the next slide, please. This is what it looks like today. Every single one of those buildings is lit up. I invite any one of you that don't have an understanding of what's happening up there to come up. If I'm standing at the end of the observatory, looking south, everything's beautiful, west, east. As soon as I turn around, I'm blinded by those lights. Literally can't see who's standing in front of me because the light is right in my eyes as if someone was shining a flashlight right there. So they are not compliant lights. They're on 24/7, or at least times that they go on at dark and stay on all night. I don't know why, but I did ask Scott Wilson, who's the maintenance coordinator for those county buildings. He was told by the county commissioners to leave them on and all lit up. He also said that the county commissioners told him that law enforcement said
it would mean greater security. I don't know what security from. I believe a lot of those buildings are empty unless there's events in them. And I'm not sure who's sitting there watching because they are all lit up. I'm not sure what the benefit is. They're causing glare, and it's actually less effective for security and safety. For that very reason, those lights are coming at you. You can't see what's behind those lights. Someone could be walking towards you and you wouldn't even see. So the whole idea of downlighting and shielded lighting is increasing your security and your safety so that you're lighting the ground only and what's happening there so that you can see in. So I think there's a misconception about Red Lodge dark skies, and everybody kind of freaks out when they hear that. The whole idea of dark sky and compliant lighting is to improve the lighting, reduce the cost, and use lighting only when it's needed and where it's needed. So if we could get a couple bit of, practices in play, which will take time, that's another story. But meanwhile, we'd like to at least provide a living fence and get that going so that in the long run, we have at least a chance of shielding the people at the observatory from this blindness coming at them, light blind. They have, like we've heard from the audience, they have impacted our visibility already up there. We can't see much in the north. The dark sky to the north is basically ruined for us. Beautiful out south. You can see the Milky Way. You can see, as it gets darker through the night, other things, but it has degraded. We've been measuring the sky quality up there for 2 years now, and the measurements have been decreased. The sky quality has been decreased. So those are the points. These I just read. I didn't read them verbatim, but made most of the points right there. Speaking about it. So the next slide, please. So a living fence. We came up with the idea of the Rocky Mountain junipers, and I checked with a couple other people that agreed that that was a really good candidate for a living fence up there. When we did the tree inventory back in 2017 and approved in 18, one of the comments that we had from Jennifer Lyman was, oh, we need more Rocky Mountain juniper. She was kind of surprised there wasn't that much here. I also conferred with Doug Reynolds, who agreed that that was a really good candidate. And then I looked at the qualities of Rocky Mountain juniper together with Tom Prosser, and he also thought that would be a good candidate. So if we were to plant living fence up there, it would mitigate at least some of the severe unnecessary and glaring light that's coming from across the street. It would enable park visitors to see safely and navigate their way across the road, because you have to remember the way in and out of the park is a trail entrance that goes up to the road on some kind of slippery gravel, but that you're at the same time you're being blinded by the lights coming at your face. So it's a little bit of a hazardous condition that it's also mitigating, and then it would contribute to the native vegetation up there. I was on Parks Board when we had dedicated Van Dyke Park as an open space park, and at the time the idea was it preserves the native vegetation in our area. It's one of the last places that has been lesser disturbed, or at least represents a number of the Dutch wildflower species in a high plains prairie. So I know that there's not a concern, but a initiative, yes, to preserve that vegetation up there. When we first proposed the observatory, we were asked to keep it back in the disturbed area so that we didn't disturb the native vegetative area. And that's why we're moved back closer to the road, in fact, is because that's already been disturbed and mowed, and you'll notice that that's very different from the sage and the rest of the field up there. It would also restore the visibility for stargazers at the observatory that desire to see north, and there are some phenomena that we really appreciate seeing north, like the northern lights. So we could see those better as well. And it could help minimize blowing snowdrifts or whatever that might be drifting across South Airport Road. I'm not sure how much of an issue that is or not, but it could be a benefit. Of course, the native habitat and the berries from it for different wildlife. So the next slide, please. All right, so what we're proposing is at least, you know, maybe we can't do it all the way across, but at least if the observatory's here and we're looking across, it would blind us from some of the lights, that are on all the time over there. As well, if we, carry it this way, as people come up to the observatory, I don't think anybody, fully understands, people come and go as it's open. It's not like everybody arrives there at one time, goes and looks, and then leaves at one time. So you do get some cars driving up, and as they're parking, it's also intrusive, and this would also help shield light from those instances. Okay, so the idea was approximately 25 Rocky Mountain junipers, tightly grown together, and then trimmed and kept down to a height that is not deemed, you know, intrusive or of concern to the airport. And it is not inside the runway protection zone or any of the buffer area. It's just that we would keep it low and, what did I say, 15 to 20 feet, probably not even 20 feet, 15 feet would be completely adequate. So what we would do is we would have volunteers of our groups, multiple groups, Red Lodge, Dark Skies, Heroes, Seed Center, and/or the observatory, to dig the holes, plant the trees, and then we'd have to also figure out how we could get a water truck or mobilize some other large amount of water to water these trees at least the first couple of years until they have a stronghold. And then pruned annually, we could keep them pruned back. And then in long run, or for the sustainability of them, it does also pass by this drainage ditch that's out front on the road. It's that thick blue line. That's there. I don't know how much water it does capture, but, you know, different rainfall events or melting snow, there's probably some water there to help them as well. Let's see. With the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I got ahead, one more slide, I just went over that. There's an additional ask to this, and I would hope that the Parks Board would also make the recommendation to the city, that the city take action on their relationship with the county and asking the county commissioners if they could do something to mitigate the lighting and the pollution that they're causing up there at the county fairgrounds as well. So we have had, as Red Lodge Dark Skies, we've had an understanding from people in Remington Ranch, especially near the fairgrounds, that those lights are in their homes all night long. They can't completely shield them from their own homes, and that does impact their sleep. This could mean a little bit of goodwill between the city and the county, as it was de-annexed. Let's have some goodwill back. If it was a city property today, it would be completely non-compliant, and we would work with the city to ask them as well if they could rectify this issue. Compliant lighting would increase the visibility of the fairgrounds for anyone surveilling, protecting, or navigating. Again, it would be greater safety and security around those buildings if they were all down shielded lights instead of glaring out at whoever's looking at them and blinding them. Protects the investment of a city amenity. The observatory is a city amenity. It's a public facility. It's on public property of the city park. And I would imagine the city wants to protect that and to make sure it serves well. And then these lights, I already mentioned, just our Remington Ranch residents, so they can have their dark skies back in their homes, inside their homes. And it stops lighting up the entire Van Dyke Park and keeps lighting only where it's needed and when it's needed. So the ask is, will the Parks Board and Public Works allow planting the living fence in Van Dyke Park as proposed? I'd love to hear if you have any differences of opinion or recommendations for a change to the proposal. And then, will the city ask the county commissioners to comply with city lighting regulations? Even though it was de-annexed and given to the county, it sits inside an envelope that impacts the city greatly. modify the fairground lighting stuff. So at the end of the proposal, before I give you a brief status, I understand you're asking for a status. Were there any questions about the proposal?
We have no explanation as to why the lights are now on all the time.
The explanation that I was given by Scott Wilson was that the county commissioners told him to leave them on because the county commissioners were told by law enforcement that it would improve their
Oh,
security.
okay, sorry, I missed the connection
I don't know who
there.
the law enforcement is.
Okay.
Was it sheriff? Was it,
Do we know if something happened, that's like a reactive decision?
I mean, I don't know how long this building's been up there, but it's been dark for years and they're empty unless they're being used. So, anyway,
Teresa,
Yeah.
has your group spoken with our local county commissioner?
I'm reluctant to do so after having been
Shut down, basically.
many times.
Mhm.
Yep. I already know what the answer's gonna be.
Any other questions from board members?
Does anyone know why there's a barbed wire fence there? No.
Are you talking
Those
on
are
the
where-
west
where
west
you're-
side of the field? the
Yeah,
private
where you're
property?
proposing.
The north
The north side,
The north,
right,
where the,
Right
the
along-
fence side.
right along the road.
Yes, the north
Yeah.
side.
It's always been there, I don't know why it's there, maybe from,
I wonder if part of it could be removing that, if there's no reason for it to be there. I mean, that's a separate thing, but, you know, people are,
might keep four-wheelers out of the park,
Yeah, true.
Mhm.
okay.
or other vehicles just wanting to go for a joyride.
I guess the only other question is why doesn't, at the county level, they don't have to abide by because it's a city mandate? And they're
We have
overriding
lighting,
that?
we have outdoor lighting ordinance within the city, but the county doesn't have their own. Development regulations is completely excluded outdoor lighting regulations.
Well, Mayor, the property was de-annexed, right?
It was,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
actually de-annexed. I was on council at the time when that was done. And about that same time, they dedicated, and actually it was done a little bit before, they had dedicated Van Dyke Park as an open space and trails only park. So one of the questions that I have had that has come up in council meetings and is a question of, if we do trees, that's yet another, it's no longer open space and trails. There is a question of, and that, we have lots of parks in town, some of which are dedicated, some of which are not dedicated. One of the things that probably needs to be looked at before we do anything else, is once something is officially dedicated as a park, it requires a 50% plus one vote of the population to have it be used for anything other than what it was dedicated and set aside for. So where this came up was, it was a conversation on the airport, because the airport actually shows up in our zoning maps as like a park and at public spaces. And he raised that as a concern because as we're looking to bring down the boundaries of the airport, he said, if it's been dedicated as a park, you cannot do anything with that space other than what is set apart without a public vote, once something is set aside as a park. And so I think if we were gonna plant any trees or do anything further that is not open space and trails, we would wanna look at the legal ramifications and get some guidance on that.
Is that
So
a state
What about all
law,
the trees?
or-
Yeah,
And
well,
did not-
hold on, because we went through the procedures of a board recommendation to city council. City council approved the location and naming of the park within Van Dyke.
Of the
That didn't take,
observatory,
right,
not
he's
the park.
discussing the trees, though.
right,
Observatory.
Well,
right,
Yeah.
right,
there-
right. But that did not take a public vote of 50% plus one.
The attorney is stating that it should have. And I have
News to
asked
me.
for the state regulations on that. So, like I said, it didn't come up in regards to this, it came up in regards to something else, but as I'm listening, it's just kind of like, that's a question that I would want before we say, yes, let's put trees in there.
And trees do not imply anything other than what is also in an open space. An open space doesn't mean there's no trees. An open space park means there's no parking for driving or vehicular traffic within the park.
Yeah, it seems bizarre to me that open space would suggest that trees are not allowed. You know, particularly
I get that.
native trees, but,
The good news is I'm not gonna be the one making the decision on this one way or the other.
yeah.
Well, who's making a decision on what, do you mean?
If-
Are you taking this back to say we need to reverse a decision on an observatory in Van Dyke Park?
I am really trying really hard not to do that. And so I am, your question to me is, am I? No, I'm absolutely not. The question that I heard was, does the Parks Board recommend putting in trees? And I want to make sure that that's within Parks Board purview before we take action based on just.
So the action of additional trees to those that are already running along the creek, or would be part of a native vegetative open space area? I think all we need to do is check the definition.
Let me go back since you asked the question. So my question when the city attorney first raised this was, why was this not raised previously?
What was not raised?
Why was this, if it's a park and it can't be used for anything other than what the park was dedicated for, not raised previously? And the only feedback he offered was, I was not consulted or asked in any way, shape, or form as this went forward.
As far as the 50+1 vote?
As far as the
Or
observatory
anything.
being something other than open space.
Kind of a non-compliant use.
Yeah, it was, and it was, he said I wasn't consulted and I wasn't advised.
Okay. He
And
being the city attorney.
the city attorney. And so that's, I have done a really good job of skirting way around that. So the answer is, I'm not saying anything. But what I'm saying is, there are questions that we need to figure out how to address.
Mr. Mayor, shouldn't the city attorney read agendas of city council so he knows if there's a potential legal, statement he needs to make? It seems like that's just quite an escape clause to say, I wasn't consulted. I mean, the agendas, I know this stuff has been on the agendas in the past. You know, the city attorney, I think, could read the agendas of the city department, and then if there's something that he has a question or she has a question, but to come back 2 or 3 years later and start.
I do not disagree that that is part of what a city attorney should do.
Excuse me, I was on the council at the time that I proposed the resolution that I did not vote on as it got approved. I abstained. I did not ever address or bring anything to council that was not already read and approved by our city attorney. That's a standard practice by anybody on the city council, and if it's not, it should be. But I can tell you, he saw that.
All I can share is what he shared with me when I asked the question. Like I said, it came up in another discussion with another couple of parks that we're looking at as to what they have and what they are not. And he raised that, and I kind of said, what happened? And he offered his opinion. I said, well, why was this not raised at the time? There were a couple of different questions, of which I have no desire to go down, because I observed a lot of this from the sidelines watching it. There was a resolution approved by the council to explore, that they were in favor of exploring the opportunity. Now, this is my memory right here, so tell me if I'm wrong. And then there was a resolution when it was all said and done for an MOU. And I believe those are the only 2 council actions that are in there.
And each was reviewed by the city attorney, because I brought them to him personally.
Is there a question there? Like I said, I'm
No, you're
under
saying-
the
you're
spotlight
saying-
and on trial, and I'm happy to answer questions, but.
No, you were saying earlier that the city attorney was not asked or did not know that this observatory was going into Van Dyke Park and that it might be apart from what was allowed.
That is what he reported.
He was provided all of those documents related to the observatory.
So do we have an active memorandum of understanding between the
Yes, we do.
observatory and the city?
There is an MOU.
Which is a legal binding document.
Yeah, yep.
And reviewed by the attorney. So I think this is a moot point.
Yeah, I think it's a moot point too, and to a certain extent, but, and there is another option here. The other request is to modify the lighting in some respect that would, mitigate, you know, the issues you have right now.
We wouldn't need a living fence if the lights
And,
were off.
and so it seems to me like between the city and the county, there ought to be enough reasonable people that you can assemble together to come up with some kind of a compromise to look at that as an option. You know, I think the living fence, I don't have a problem with that. I think it fits in well with the thought of the philosophy of an open space area, particularly because they're native species. The one thing I am a little bit concerned, I'm not concerned about is something that we would have to consider on the design of the living fences, make sure you're not creating a problem with snow drifting, because it is an art to design a snow fence, and you could actually cause more problems with the position of the trees and causing drifting, you know, over that road or over the pathway. So it might be well worth the effort if you're going to go that route to talk to somebody from DNRC or Soil Conservation Service or the Cooperative Extension Service to get some guidance on
We could work
the
with
design of the
right.
snow fence.
The Ag Extension Office in Joliet is a conservancy group that we would work with anyway to apply for the Rocky Mountain juniper seedlings that we would plant. So we could definitely use their expertise in that.
You know, and so it seems to me like, I'm just going to throw this out for additional discussion. Would it make sense to kind of hold off on the approval of the living snow fence this time, living fence, but try to explore some other options that could help mitigate the problems with the lighting, whether that's
It's in the city's hands. I've already gone in personally and taken tips, and it's not for me as a person. I think the group, the mayor, the council, land use and planning, I don't know how many groups I need to ask for that type of help and a lift from the city to negotiate something with the commissioners. It would seem reasonable to me that the city would want to protect its amenity of an observatory.
Mayor.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I don't see a problem with this board recommending either or both of those actions, meaning that's the purpose of this board, is to make recommendations and thoughts. So if this board wants to make a recommendation for living trees, if this board wants to make a recommendation or even a draft to ask the county, if they wanted to put together a letter and have the city deliver, if they wanted to ask council to make a resolution, asking, there's 2 or 3 different things, all of which are in the realm of these are the recommendations we'd make, and I would say take your, you know, I'm not saying it has to be an immediate action, but think about what's the most appropriate and what's the most likely to be successful action for the end outcome.
Okay. Beth, did you have a comment?
Yeah. Teresa, I have a living fence on the north and south side of our lane. It causes a lot of drifting. We get predominant north, so it will impact the road if not placed properly, especially if you're talking about it being thick and dense and together. When you talk about state seedlings that are this big, you're not gonna have a screen for years, right? A lot of years. So I think that
Decade.
we can certainly make a recommendation that the city coordinate or talks with the county about goodwill efforts to.
Go to the west.
And I know that it's not just the observatory. I do think that there's southwest and southeast and Remington Ranch people that are probably pushing in that direction also. I also wonder if a tree is gonna give that protection to you when you're saying that the light now goes 2/3 of the way across, Van Dyke Park. Like, how tall do those trees have to be to give you?
Well, that's true. I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
So,
15 to 20 feet, I would hope.
so I think it's obvious that we need to recommend that if there's an alternative to the lighting that can be evaluated, that we at least request it. I don't think there's anyone in this room that doesn't think a conversation should at least happen.
I agree that that's the starting point.
So somebody want to make a motion,
I think Beth just did, pretty much.
okay? Would you like to kind of repeat that maybe for Madeline's,
A more official motion. I make a motion that the Parks Board ask our council, recommend to our council that there is some request of the county for, maybe they can come and speak to us at a meeting, maybe they can be on the agenda. And hopefully it can be done without that, but to explain what the lighting situation is and how that might be remedied. And secondly, that the next step would be to consider some sort of living fence, if one can be selected that makes sense for your location.
so Beth, not to put words in your mouth,
Go
but,
ahead.
but the first half of that motion, would it be that this board recommends that the city council work or have communications with the county about coming up with a solution
Well-
to mitigate the lighting issue?
We're an advisory board.
Yeah.
We recommended that the Whistler Observatory be placed at Van Dyke
Mhm.
Park. It went through a lot of legal, approvals at the city council level. We are not an action board, we are an advisory board. So the best we can do is to encourage
Well, instead of,
Chelsea and the mayor and our city council to at least have a conversation.
so, okay.
So it'd be a two-prong
And if
issue.
that, if the first
Recommend
part
the trees
fails, I guess.
and
Let's do the first part and then we
recommend.
can do the.
Yeah.
So does this work? Motion that Parks Board asks City Council and Mayor to request that the county explain lighting at county buildings and how it can be remedied,
Adjusted
Or to mitigate
mitigated.
light pollution.
light pollution that's
Trespass.
affecting the observatory, something of that nature.
I would argue the area.
Okay. And I understand we're an advisory group, but to me, a request and a recommendation is pretty close to being synonymous.
Right, I agree.
All right?
Should I read it again?
You want to try reading it back to us again?
And then get a second vote?
Yeah, we have to have a vote on it.
Parks Board asks, recommends
Okay.
that City Council, now I have recommend twice.
We recommend, the city council recommends.
Yeah, recommends that City Council and Mayor recommend that the county explain the lighting at the county buildings by Van Dyke Park and how its light pollution could be mitigated. Oh, very eloquent.
That is affecting the observatory and maybe
Just the
adjacent
surrounding
areas.
areas adjacent.
Well, it affects wildlife,
Yeah, I
it
wouldn't
affects,
even put it as.
it affects everything.
Yeah.
Wildlife, birds get confused, I mean, it's not great.
I'm surprised pilots flying in, I haven't
Actually,
complained
yeah.
about it.
that's
Hmm.
right.
Anyway.
I thought of that.
I don't know, the lights are on at night, one-way lights.
What do you think, Madeline? You got something for us?
And this motion doesn't have to be as eloquent as like a recommendation letter, that's,
Yeah.
take a little stress off.
I don't like that recommended in there twice. Motion that Parks Board recommends that City Council and the Mayor recommends that the county explains the lighting at county buildings by the airport and how its light pollution that affects the surrounding area could be mitigated.
I second.
We got
There we go.
Well,
Chelsea,
well,
can't you
did we
take,
have a motion?
based
We had
on
a
that,
motion?
can't you take
Who-
something?
I
Who
think
did a
a
motion?
formal
They request.
That's-
letter
Oh,
from
there-
the board
she has
that I
two
can then
things in her
take would
motion.
be the best
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, so Rod mentioned that you had two things in your motion that only addresses the lighting, not the trees, right?
Right.
Well,
Or do you want to hold off on the trees
I
for
do
another
think
time?
that requires, not to make a big thing about it, but I do think we want to look at that a little more carefully. So
Well,
I think
and-
we should do this first.
It's gonna take
Yeah.
a while.
I think that makes sense.
We'll research this.
So I think that makes perfect sense. Try this.
Talking
Yeah.
about fast
No
growing
need
trees.
to
If this doesn't work, then we go to plan.
explore the other options.
Actually,
Motions are generally a single idea.
having been
Yeah.
up there at night, the cars coming down Airport Road are really bright. And if you're standing at the observatory looking through a telescope, they're annoyingly bright, because they come around that curve,
Yeah, I noticed that last.
pretty much ruin your
We're
vision.
not, I don't think we're gonna be able to stop traffic, but.
No, but the living fence
Sure.
would slow those headlights
Do we
down.
need to vote
So
on
what,
the
we have a,
motion?
we have a motion.
Yes. Yeah, a motion on the table,
Yeah.
seconded.
Yeah, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes. All right, thank you, Teresa.
Did you want the status of the
Oh,
observatory?
well, if you want to
Is it
get some more slides?
There's just one last one.
Sure.
But,
Go ahead.
so anyway, we started out with 2 offerings per month, basically on the Fridays before new moon, before full moon, new moon. And then we realized, visiting other observatories, we asked, hey, how do you, what do you do to get people to come in and, understand when you're open? And, we're just open every Friday. So we said, oh, okay, 'cause general public, I don't think are really understanding, oh, this is a Friday before the new moon, or Friday before the full moon. So we just open every Friday, and, so from dusk for 1.5 hours, for 1.5 hours that follow, we'll stay open, because it's just less confusing for everybody. And we have had, starting with the 23rd, a much better turnout. We often have, first-timers at most of our openings. So we have, it's not just repeaters of people that keep coming back, it's new people. And so it is catching on. I think we're gaining some ground as far as, new visitors and people that are looking for a way to, bring their guests out to something different in Red Lodge. We've had a lot of people that bring their guests up there when they have guests at their home. We've had people bring guests from Colorado, Washington, Maryland, Texas, and just all over the country. It's something more to do than just go to a restaurant or a bar at night. So, we've seen a lot of success in that, and we started advertising that we are open every Friday. The high school astronomy class is using it again. Kurt now brought up a class late last year as school was turning down, and we had only just finished it. So they are planning to use it a lot more often this year, and then starting next week, Kurt will be bringing his classrooms out. We open upon request as well to people that might have groups, someone reached out to Kurt now, for instance, and had a huge family reunion out at Roscoe and showed up with 18 guests. So it's a really nice thing for families and their guests, their visitors to do. We've had a lot of success with that, and other families as well asking. We do have a contractor that's going to be providing an estimate for the pathway and also mounting of a memorial plaque on the building. We have been working with Purcell, but still haven't, after repeated, he's just way too busy. So we're asking and working with another contractor to see if we can get that pathway put down, hopefully before the winter. Meanwhile, it's always weed whacked, it's always groomed, the trail. We've initiated a formation of Friends of the Woe, the Woodsville Observatory, to enlarge our volunteer base so that we can have more openings upon request, as requests come in. And we are beginning the draft of an endowment agreement and fundraising for that endowment. So I sat with Tracy and have permission to use a draft that they've used before with other groups in order to get a nonprofit endowment initiated.
Good. All right, thank you. All right, if there's no other further questions, we'll move on to the next item then.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for.
Okay,
Thank you, Teresa.
our next item is the 2025 Arbor Day grant, and Alan Best is, I think he's
Here he is.
here. There he is,
Hi, Alan.
via Zoom. So Alan, what have you got?
Thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, could I have permission to screen share? And incidentally, a couple of years ago, down here in Denver, I called up the city and said, hey, the street light is shining in my bedroom window. Can you do something about that? And they said, yeah, sure, we'll slap one of those shield cones on. And they did, and it made a huge difference. And I was like 25 feet from the street lamp. So imagine at that much flatter angle, so just food for thought. But shield cone, maybe Google that. All right, thank you. So this is Arbor Day Foundation Grant 2025 proposal version 2.0. And the reason it's version 2.0 is because it does not include any city trees for planting or a repeat tree inventory. And it does include some of the findings from the prior 2017 tree inventory. And so the feedback from the most recent middle of June 2024 Arbor Day grant discussion was there were too many community trees. We had 40 left over. There was a bit too much demand on public works for the planting and maintenance watering of the trees, did not incorporate input from the 2017 tree survey, and that we probably don't need a 2017 tree survey update quite yet. And so cut to the chase, it'd be three things. Number one, and please, whatever you guys decide you want, I would be more than happy to write a grant. So this is version 2.0 and work in progress. Number one, willow seedlings to plant on Rock Creek and prevent erosion. I'm guessing $10,000. Number two, funds to remove dead and hazardous trees around the city. I'm guessing $10,000. And number three, community distribution of trees. Fewer than last year, maybe 30 trees, again, $10,000. So that'd be a total ask of $30,000. And so willow seedlings to plant along Rock Creek. And the purpose really would be to prevent erosion. And if Arbor Day Foundation needs a flood recovery theme again, that would be our hook. I'm still learning about this. You guys are all experts. I am not. But I heard about hydro seeding, and this is an example of that around town. So maybe that could be incorporated in this. There's probably a bunch of agencies to coordinate with. Maybe the Montana DOT would be the main one. Ideally, this would be a one-day volunteer project. Again, you guys know more than me, but ideally it would have no ongoing maintenance. And I heard that the last time we did this, quote, all the willow seedlings washed away. And I'd love to know a little bit more of that so we could prevent the same mistake. Number two would be the removal of dead and hazardous trees. And for the location of those trees, we would probably want to start with the 2017 tree inventory. And we just tackled the worst offenders. We're not trying to do a perfect 100% job here, just the worst offenders. Ideally, we'd be able to hire an outside service. I'm not even sure if that's available. Hopefully you guys can give some feedback. Oh, and here's an update. In the past, we've talked about would the DNRC funding for tree planting and removal be an option for this? It is not. I looked into that. It ended just about 6 months ago. So DNRC funding is no longer an option. And so this needs to be ground verified, but this is from the 2017 urban forestry document, which includes the tree inventory data. And this shows two plots. The one on the screen left is mapping of city trees with potential wire line conflict. And the one on the right shows tree removal recommendations. And long story short, if you guys, I don't know, to my eye, it looks like there's a cluster of trees down here and maybe up to the north. Where do you want to start our ground? What was that?
Oh, are you presenting some kind of chart or something that we're supposed to be able to see?
Can you guys?
Can't see you.
We see you.
Yeah, we just see you.
Oh, no. Thank you. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for coming tonight. All right. So here you go. And there's a pretty picture from the 2024 event. And here we go. And so this right here is the example of what might be hydro seeding. I don't know anything about this, but maybe you guys do. And so this is an example of a guy cutting down a dead tree. And these, thank you so much for speaking up, are two maps which we would maybe want to refer to. Here's a cluster of dead trees down here, and here's another up there. Might be a good place to start, especially if you're only talking about, $10,000 worth of funds to get the worst offending hazardous and dead trees around the city. Number 3 would be a community distribution of trees, much fewer this time, maybe 40 trees for $10,000. I heard that in the past year, someone in the community offered to dig holes for a small fee. Maybe that would be a way to, again, alleviate some of the heavy lift, so to speak, on members of our community and Public Works Department. So in summary, this would be a total ask of $30,000. It's not due till mid-January 2025 for the early bird priority, but man, time flies. And so I would be, I'm hoping to write up and submit an application as soon as the board decides what they would want to ask for. I do have a couple more slides, but that's the official end of the summary. Menu item number 4, if it were to be considered, would be a very small amount, maybe $3,000 for just like a dozen city trees to plant, and then of course water, but only the highest priority planting spots. And this is the map of potential tree planting spots. And you can see the different dots, and maybe if anyone can recognize, oh yeah, that'd be a great place to plant a bunch of trees and it would not be too much burden for city public works, and that might be something to do. I heard that someone mentioned Field School Park. Anyway, this would be something for public works input, and this would need ground truthing to update the reality since the 2017 survey. But hey, if we're talking low fruit, why not? Menu item number 5, which also I did not include on that list of 3 things, would be consideration of the Rocky Ford property, the Bastion House. This is the location. I hear that it's being acquired through FEMA, and the city might want to turn it into an open space. If so, maybe the city would want to plant a community green park there, trees, pollinators. If so, what would be the city's timeline? Would we need to coordinate with FEMA? Maybe this is an item for 2026. Yeah, we're looking kind of far ahead. Arbor Day Foundation application, along with, perhaps by then, would be due for another tree inventory update. Last topic, a different grant. This is the CPRG thing that I talked about so many times. Long story short, the state of Montana did get half of what they asked for, and this is part of the half which I thought that Parks Board might want to consider and see if there were anything here that they would want to ask to be a subawardee from the Montana DEQ for funds. I'll cut to the chase. After I read it, I thought that beaver dam analogs might be something which could apply. And so here's a picture. If you guys know what beavers do, they make dams, and instead of doing beavers and dams, it's something analogous. And so they basically stick some wood posts down and they block off the water flow with some natural branches, etc. And it causes water to accumulate here. Why is that a good thing? Well, it mimics the benefits of beaver dams. Those would be for us storing a bunch of water in the hills above town, drought tolerance, fire resistance, some more habitat, stream complexity, reduced soil loss. I'm not sure if we have the appropriate geography about this. Again, I don't know much about beaver dams. Maybe you guys do, but I've looked into it. I've emailed Autumn and a couple of other people who seem to be experts at this. And I just looked at the map and just used common sense. I thought maybe above Palisades Campground, or maybe some of the streams coming down off Mount Maurice. And so anyway, think about that. Again, that's not a Arbor Day Foundation issue, but something for the Parks Board to consider applying their knowledge about. And last slide, this is an upcoming Zoom talk on that CPRG forest measure grant. But in summary, really the crux was these 3 things right here. And so thank you. Basically, I'm asking you guys for information, and if you guys know which of those the Parks Board would want to recommend, I would love to come up with a draft Arbor Day Foundation application due mid-January of 2025.
Maybe that's something we can all think about this next month and come back to.
So, yeah,
'Cause I
so
don't-
first of all, the, 2 of those things at the end, those involve forest lands. We don't have any of those in the city limits. That's outside city. Parks Board is city. I think both of those locations, you're in the U.S. Forest Service, the Beaver Dam and the wildland. Alan, I think everybody loves having trees. Everybody loves a tree project. we had the grant, you got the grant last year, and Parks Board had to do the work, and there was a lot of work that was done by city officials and Parks Board. And so I think that I'm willing to say that you need a committee, a team of people that would project manage this to present back to us of how you would do it.
Yeah, the money is great, but the people resources, and even beyond that initial day of planting, I mean, maintaining, you know, at what point,
We have, public works has way more hours than the volunteers have into that.
yeah, no, I know, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
and at what
Exactly.
point do we get to add another staff person to
Yeah.
Public Works because of that, so.
I mean, out of all those, getting rid of the dangerous trees, I've said this at the last 2 or 3 meetings, that's the project. And that's it, it's just small bites, eat it all, do a good job. You know, we dropped the ball a little bit this year by not getting all the trees distributed. So,
If we do
Well,
have
and-
a local tree
you know,
service.
let's just do what we can and do a good job.
Yeah.
Lisa?
I was just thinking, back to the last time there was an initiative to remove some of the dangerous trees. We had, if these are larger trees that you identify, the, fire and rescue team used them as a practice. And that's a good way to keep the costs down, you
Okay.
know? And then it's a matter of just paying for the removal and the, you know, diminishing of them and removal.
So the fire and rescue team were actually taking the trees down?
Yep, they
Oh.
were climbing up with the ropes and practicing. It
Oh.
was a good drill for them. And then once they got it down, I think it was just a matter of paying for the removal, you know, the dividing of pieces and the removal. And it's the whole service.
So, Alan, I'm wondering, you know, you've kind of thrown a lot at everybody here in your presentation to, you know, to kind of, absorb all this. The, presentation you have, can you email those to the board members? Maybe it gives us some time to take a look at these, your options, and maybe some board members or other people in the public may have some other ideas too, and maybe we can address this at the next meeting. Is that
Sure,
possible?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Anyone who wants it, please, let me know. Roger, Madeline, Chelsea, Mayor, RLP Works. I will try to see if I can dig anything else. Yeah, absolutely. I would be more than happy to, and maybe provide you guys some time to think about this. My goal in this was to minimize the work on public works and city resources, such as hopefully hiring a dead hazardous tree removal company, or that great idea that we just had about the practice and community distribution trees. I'll do that, and thanks for your consideration.
So yeah, I know that there's several tree removal services here in the
Yeah.
area, and I'm
Yeah.
sure they'd be thrilled to have projects like that.
Yeah.
My question would be, would we need to get an RFP on that?
I don't think so. We're under
It would depend on the numbers involved, but I don't think we'd go over those.
What generally is
I
that?
think the magic number's 80,000.
So for capital, it's 80, for services, it sometimes vary, but it tends to be 80 is,
Okay,
if you're well below 80, we float it past Lonnie and the auditors and say, we good? And if we start getting close to that, then we say, are we good?
The other
Right.
thing with the distribution trees, I don't know where the number 40 came from, but I think there was some confusion this year regarding past programs. So if we decide to go that route, I think the communication could be tweaked for that to be more successful, but maybe we want to just consider if that truly is the best way to distribute them, or if there's a different, similar to what we were doing previously, or a mix of both of those things,
Yeah.
so.
and maybe not to, belabor the discussion too much, you know, we're in the middle of a big street project, and somewhere down the line, that may transition into a resurfacing curb, gutter, sidewalk type of program, is that correct?
EDA grant, there'll probably be
And
some room for
so-
boulevard trees.
so it probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to, promote the planting of trees along city right-of-ways at this point. and then have to come back in later and figure out how you're gonna put curb, gutter, and sidewalk and all that in
And
there.
particularly if that includes some money to populate those boulevards.
Yes,
Right.
yep, maybe that could be included in it.
Alan, are you familiar with the tree share program that Red Lodge has had for several years?
No, the only thing that I know is that in comparison with free Arbor Day grant, trees, that it would cost money, but I don't know anything more about it, so please feel free to educate me.
I just, because that's what we've been doing for years, and so I think that's where the comment here was. And I think, I forget who it was, I think it's a reality that we have limited resources. It's not just money, it is volunteers, it is staff, it is how many things to keep track of, and there are some things, and I guess that's where I do kind of step in sometimes, because I do say priorities like, let's get our stormwater done so we can do our streets and we can do our boulevards, and so there are places where this can fit into that, as opposed to driving the ship.
So one other comment on, would it be easier, Madeline, if he just sent the information to you and you distributed it, or just?
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
If you want to just send that information to Madeline, then she can distribute it. Any other discussion? Any discussion from public?
Thanks, Alan.
Okay, thank
Alan.
you,
Thanks,
Alan.
Alan.
Always a pleasure
Thank you.
to hear your enthusiasm.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Next item, Brewery Hill feasibility study letter of support. Madeline, you.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone got a chance to read that.
The only thing I thought, Madeline, is that we might add, people have already made a social path, down the hill, and it's only, I see groups of people coming out of the new development, walking into town, and, so it's already there, sort of, and, we just need to,
I would just say they have to watch the road. So that's.
They have been.
It's definitely
They're
a
on
safety
the-
issue.
Yeah, I guess
Curb.
our thing here is not necessarily like saying everything
Right.
about the
Okay,
trail, because that's what the feasibility
right.
study is for, but, yeah. that's a good-
Would you just like to maybe read the letter, just so we can read it into
Oh,
record?
gosh.
I have it here.
Mary Dale can read it.
Mary
I'll
Jo
read
could read
I
it.
can read it.
Okay.
To whom it may concern, the members of the Red Lodge Parks, Trees, and Recreation Board are writing to express our wholehearted support for a feasibility study regarding a trail next to Highway 78 on Brewery Hill. This trail has the potential to provide needed pedestrian and bike access between the West Bench and town. It would serve residents of the bench and golf course who need a safe commuting route, and recreationists wanting to use the airport trail system and further trails. The trail would also provide a convenient way to access the rodeo grounds for events. Board members have consistently heard feedback from the public emphasizing the importance of bike and pedestrian access in this area. This project also aligns with the 2015 Comprehensive Parks Plan. Thank you for considering our support for this initial step toward implementation of this trail.
I make a motion that we submit that to Nick Daddy and ask if he needs anything tweaking in it. If there was something, you could just do an email.
Okay. Email revisions as needed.
I believe that could be done, right? That's legit.
And so who
If
signed?
you vote on my motion.
Do you have a sec, do we have a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And then, Madeline, do you know
Yeah,
who you want to?
Can I
Come
sign it
from
as secretary, or should Roger sign it as chair, probably?
I'd be happy to sign it.
Okay, so I'll send, once we get any tweaks from
Okay.
Nick. Okay.
Did you
Okay.
draft it, Mary Beth?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No,
No,
no, Madeline.
Madeline.
good
did it.
job.
So,
Good job, Madeline.
Very nice job.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, the next item is a report update on it's actually Rocky Ford, isn't it?
Oh, Rocky Fork?
Yeah, Ford or Fork?
Or fork, like you eat with it,
Yeah.
fork.
Or
A fork?
fork in the river where one half goes through your living room and one half.
Yeah, and it
Goes
happens
tears
right
out
there
your
too.
garage.
didn't it? It is.
An update. We close on it tomorrow. The hazmat team is showing up on site tomorrow to do an estimate and get somebody in there. The goal is to have it flattened, this year, with the thinking that, so there are some regulations about what we can do with it. I do have a call with FEMA tomorrow at 10. We'll get a little bit of additional guidance. My thinking is, that there's gonna be several ideas that come forth. I'm very interested in hearing what the input and recommendations from this board are. But I think part of that is we have to get a finalized guidance from what our limitations are, and Beartooth RC&D, is gonna be our partner. They're kind of what we're looking at is the funding source. What we've got right now is to get it down to basically ground zero and get it recovered, and that is the goal this year. So once we close on the property tomorrow, there's three parts that are left. There's standard demolition, there's reclamation, which is the hazmat stuff, asbestos, I've got three things in that list, and then there's also some fork, or some bank stabilization that goes into that. And kind of going back to our $80,000 question, one of them is, so are those all together? And they're actually three different things. And so that's where some of those questions come into play there. So I anticipate we'll get some more information there, but the goal is that we're closing on this tomorrow. Once we have done that, then the next step is demolition, which we are doing with DEQ. And the next step is a big fat question mark where we would love the input from this board and the community as a whole. And we'll probably take that a little bit bigger scale just to get that out there. And in a related note, the 10 o'clock call tomorrow is actually based around the Eagle's Nest. I went and met with Sean in Billings last week, and they're looking at acquiring the Eagle's Nest as well.
Awesome.
So that could be a year or two, but we're looking at doing that also.
Sorry, who did you say, you need to get final guidance from?
It'll be Beartooth RC&D as far as like what we can, and the FEMA.
Beartooth RC and.
Who is RC&D?
Beartooth RC&D, they,
RC&D.
yeah. The group that the federal government works with to restore and do projects.
So are they a consulting?
Montana is divided into 5 districts, and that's ours.
Okay, so they're
Quasi-government.
They're
They're-
quasi-governmental that works at the behest or guidance of the Fed.
So Mayor, do you think that, by the next Parks Board meeting that we'll have some idea of what kind of restrictions or limitations there might be on this? And so would
I
it make
think we
sense
can
to
do that.
re-agendize this for the
Yeah,
October
to get a
meeting?
list, yeah.
Okay.
And just basically review what the limitations are.
Yeah, good.
We should have that. I might be still in the major concern of getting it taken care of and gone, but those two things are happening simultaneously.
Any questions?
Awesome.
Is DEQ gonna put it out for bid, the demolition?
I believe that they are talking tomorrow. They don't have to, but so the hazmat part is definitely theirs. Part of the question of the call tomorrow is the demo and the bank stabilization, ours or theirs. So that's part of the clarification we're going into. If it's them putting it out to bid or us putting it out to. Yeah, and I mentioned that to them today when I talked to them, that we've had a lot of people. So they will probably end up doing a second showing of what they did. But yeah, you and I can chat with that afterwards, but that was a late call today, so.
Good.
You don't have to do that, Mike.
So that's,
You don't have to do that.
No, we're not doing that, there's a lot of contractors that want to.
Oh, no, yeah, it's not the city, but as soon as people have heard, it's been interesting because our email has been lightening up. But a lot of it is on the demo side, not the hazmat side, and those two things they have to work together. So this is literally something that is developing. I mean, I was on 3 different calls today on it, so it develops with every day.
well, this is, exciting and good news, I
Yeah.
think.
Good news.
So any other questions or comments from the public or from the board? I don't think this requires any action today.
No, I think the only potential action is a takeaway for me, which is see if I can shorten or codify the list of the guidelines. And that's basically on a call tomorrow, so it's just sharing that with this group, which I of course will do.
Thank you very much.
Here, just if you don't mind, like, keeping us updated about where everything is in the process, like at any point when there's potential for comment or input.
Yeah.
Well, that's scary, because I'm here to tell you, if somebody walks past it, there's potential for comment.
You know what I mean.
I walk by it every day.
I drove
I've
by
walked
it
by
today
it
to
every
see if
day.
it was gone, but it's still there.
Little Gaza Strip. So, all right, let's move on then, unless there's any questions, comments. Okay, we'll move on to, the Parks budget update with Mike.
We got our budget approved, basically it's about the same. I put the, kind of the Parks project, which is kind of gives us some ability to do some things up to 85,000. I think we moved some money around just in some line items that make it, line items that we were kind of overusing based on last year, nothing significant.
Okay. All right.
I got approved, so we're good to go.
Were you
Yeah.
able to use, 23, 24 monies for the tree planting, for hours and so forth with all of the public works
We
input on
figured
the
out
trees?
something, Lonnie and I, what we're doing with that extra 10, I can't remember where it went. I think it went into a new line item called tree water, but I'm not sure. Do you remember?
No, that was my recollection as well. Our biggest thing is we want to make sure that we're able to show the paper trail if Arbor Day comes back and says, so where our money went where?
Right.
And just in terms of like park stuff, nothing too major. Willie's been doing a great job. Did maintenance most of the summer. We did, we put another, did that? That was skid put up on the hill. We did, okay, we put up another porta potty up there for soccer, but this one's up on top, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
We have a little,
I'm sure they'll be happy.
we did a little project in Pride Park. One of the benches was rotted and was brought to our attention because we didn't know, and, that's all fixed and getting stained now.
Hey, don't sit on it today,
Willie fixed it yesterday, so
Yeah.
he's building it.
staining it today.
And, next week, this is kind of a parks project. I did some kind of hydraulic modeling of what goes on up there at Coal Miners Park with the current topography, and the vast majority of that water goes towards the Yellowstone Sanctuary. It just worked out really well with the stormwater project. They need to get rid of a lot of material, and it just made sense with trucking. They screened it here, we took it up there and dumped it. Because one of the constraints with changing how that water goes up there was we needed a lot of dirt. And we have a lot of dirt up there now, and hopefully next week we're gonna start basically where that circle is with the flags and the memorial stones are. We're gonna move all that out of there.
Nice.
And we're gonna peel off the top layer, set it aside, and then start lifting that up in lifts and compaction, and try and bring it up ideally like 2 feet. And then try and bring up that parking lot a little bit to the west of that. As, I don't know if I have enough material to do that. We need about 3,000 yards total. I don't think we have that. We've got a couple thousand. And then on the backside, we're gonna try to mill out that asphalt that's where that big dip is, and then bring that up, and then, and this is a little longer term, but try and get that, back to asphalt, maybe all the way around the circle and down to Beckett.
Maybe nice.
On Chambers.
Nice.
And I think it'd make the park a lot more appealing, because
Yep.
it would, when you put all that fill in there and then remodel the hydrology, it's still, it's a challenge to get the water to go down to that storm drain, but it will. It's, the big lake will be smaller. It'll be better than it is. I don't know if it'll be perfect.
Is there any potential to take any of the fill
What's that?
is there any potential to take any of that fill, like, up on the?
That's all dirty.
We're not going on that hill.
No.
Yeah. You don't want, you mean the smooth landfill?
Yeah.
That's all dirty.
Yeah.
I don't think you want it.
Any updates on kind of the roundabout and the surrounding boulevards around there?
heard about the sprinkler inventory. I didn't know anything about that. No, I haven't done anything. I've got a big letter to put together for DOT, and that's gonna be brushed on in there.
So, just that we did a volunteer effort and
Yeah.
kind of got the mass of the weeds, but that was just, a right now, so that is on the agenda to come up with something that is attractive to the humans as well and low maintenance and something that makes sense for an entryway
We
to.
can still have sealing the concrete at the skate park on our agenda. I was kind of waiting till school started, because that skate park is a busy place.
Yes, it is.
So we're gonna try and get it power washed and get the seal coat on that. And I think while we're doing that, we're gonna do the stamped concrete at Pride Park same time, just 'cause it needs a good power wash and a spray sealer on it too.
Mike, any, update on the pool situation, the boiler?
The pool boiler is, as everyone knows, is busted. We managed to stay open a lot longer than anticipated. They were able to kind of get the covers on a little earlier and harvest some of that solar energy and then store it with the covers. We're probably, it's a guess, but 7-8 weeks out from getting a boiler. And we probably will get a partial install done, and then the rest of it will have to happen when we start up. We're gonna winterize the pool next Friday, is the plan.
This boiler is a more capable and appropriate boiler for our application than the first
Yeah,
one was.
the boiler we're going to is a definite upgrade, and has some, I don't think anyone will ever really know what exactly happened with that boiler. It went through 2 startups, and it was completely, I mean, just plugged with soot and overheated and broke everything inside of it. Part of that could have been the way that it was started up. But it seems hard for me to believe that twice.
Yeah.
It was started up twice. You know, and because there's a manual valve on it, you get a condensation problem when the water coming in is really cold and water comes out is really hot, so you wanna mix that. This new boiler has an automatic mixing valve.
Mixing valve.
That does all that. So, I don't know what, like I said, I don't think anyone will ever know what happened to that boiler or what caused it, but it's going in the scrap pile.
Good. Any other questions? for
Well,
Mike?
just back to the parking lot and the sanctuary area, I would just like to say hats off to the city and Mike, because Public Works has kicked that can down the road for 15
No,
years.
it isn't anything yet.
I've never even heard anyone say what they wanted to do with it,
Yeah.
so
Good.
kudos.
Hopefully it'll be better.
Good.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Next item, Parks Round Robin. Representatives, brief check-in update on, and volunteer hours.
Is there any way we can move that to next month and start there? We
Okay,
haven't
so I
done
have-
it for a long
So
time.
I have a question, and I was gonna do something similar to that request. I'm pretty sure everybody isn't, and I forgot to ask baseball about hours for coal miners. So what if I made a stab to reach out to every park owner via email and have you summarize your hours? Because I don't think this is the time we don't wanna take valuable time
Yeah.
tonight either to
I think it's a really good idea.
think about it. So then when we come, I won't be at next meeting, but I certainly can produce information. So I would say, Rod, add up all that stuff you got from tennis people 2 weeks ago and think about what you've done and anybody else that you can think of. And it can be estimates. Mary Dell, I'll just hit all of you via email and put a table together.
Okay.
And then we should do kind of round robin where we go around and just give any updates.
Yeah, I think that's a great
We
idea.
haven't done that.
Why don't we just, we'll just agendize that as a routine item then.
Mhm.
And I think that park owner chart spreadsheet probably needs some modification and maybe updating on it too. I might
Well, and-
something to take a look at.
Roger, you don't have any, do you?
Finn Park.
Finn Park,
Oh, I think we have a couple that aren't manned.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some open ones.
Aren't manned
Yeah,
women.
actually Rotary Park isn't. Man or woman.
Yeah.
What's the, how do we determine how many people are, like, how many spots are on the board,
On the
the
board.
Parks Board?
Set by ordinance.
It's dictated by the resolution,
Says bylaw.
What's in the 918 ordinance?
resolution or bylaws.
Okay.
Um,
So is there, if we ever wanted to make a motion to add another person, like for park ownership's sake, I'm just throwing this out there.
Well, no, they don't.
They don't have to
you
be
could
a
ha- They
board
don't have to be on
member.
the board to be a park owner.
Okay, we could,
Yeah,
okay.
for instance, like if.
Yeah,
If Midge wanted
Amy
to
Boyd
own a
wanted
park.
to-
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so why don't we, let's just, we'll address that next month and we'll put that on as a regular agenda item.
Does anyone have any, like, urgent park
I got
updates?
well, I've just got a couple things, but I'll get with Mike offline about Finn Park. Go ahead.
Can I ask, because I don't think it's an item, addressing, did you get some information, because I got, my email train got lost.
Yes, that's an item that, I sent an email out, I think both to Mike and the mayor, you know, asking the status of where we are on addressing, and, I think it's a really important issue that needs some attention. Do we know where we are on that?
I'm gonna look at GIS, cause I got the county addressing layer from Tom Coley a while back, and like, I think somebody said the pool didn't have an address.
Yeah, there's a couple of spots, so,
I think, let me look at that and see,
Okay.
there might be, I doubt all the parts are addressed, or maybe none more, but we should look at their database first, because they may have assigned an address and we just don't know about it.
There was kind of a two-part question. The first one was, because this came up as a part of the general addressing scheme, and there's been several conversations. I think that, I'm projecting that that's gonna end up dying, that we're gonna be changing the name street, so that this street right here is the center street, and they went first north, second north, third north, first south, second south, third south. But there continues to be things that have come up, and mostly it was, you know, it was relatively few businesses, but everything from like bank loans, and several things. So I think that project may officially have come to an end, but then the second part of that is while you're at it, also do the parks. And so I think once we know the finish of that, then it's just a matter of getting those assigned from Tom, put on there. But it has been brought up and but I appreciate the reminder, but it hasn't been forgotten.
Okay.
I'll look, it might be.
I know
he
Yellowstone
might have-
Sanctuary has an address, and I know the high school has an address, and then Coal Miners is in between. Are you saying that street name may change? That's going in?
No, probably.
No, it was the north-south streets. So
Oh.
that we're
Okay.
changing. The numbers
Well, if
are the
we-
same. This is the zero.
No, East-West Street, East-West Street.
Let's not confuse.
Well, I'm sorry, east-west, look what my hands are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
East Street.
Just wanna make sure we,
Yeah.
don't wanna confuse anybody on that.
So if there were a priority placed, and there could be an address put in the middle of his new parking lot that addresses all of Coal Miners, because we have so many children at the Ball Diamonds and up on top.
So if we call the
I
ambulance,
asked to
just get
put
them to
it
the
at
center of
the
the
top
park?
of the list, over
Okay.
Finn Park.
Yeah. Over Finn Park?
So
Huh.
just,
You guys battle it out, we'll sell tickets.
Okay,
We'll
well,
pay for
Yeah.
the park.
I know who's gonna win that one.
Meanwhile, you can put them in Google Maps. That's what we
They
had to
don't
do.
all come up.
That's what we had to do for Whistler Observatory, because Van Dyke Park has no address either.
Yeah, they don't all come up with just the park name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including the pool. Maps doesn't know it exists.
yeah,
Yeah.
So we're working on it.
I appreciate
And I appreciate the reminder, thank you.
Oh.
You know, and, I just wanted to bring up one other thing. And I apologize because we didn't put it on the agenda, I just thought of it today. But maybe in the future, and I wanted to say this before we got to citizens' comments, that we may want to have a routine agenda that would just be future agenda items that we can discuss at the end of our discussion, say, are there any items we want on for the next meeting?
So you could put that in instead of repeating the citizen comments, because that's not actually, how'd we get that?
So, one thing that I do is I just put standing topics. So it's stuff that we don't necessarily have time for in these meetings.
Yeah.
It's stuff that we want to keep on our radar
Yeah.
and always have there. And then if you get past something, then you can pull it up.
Yeah.
But like, it just remains in place. And that way you don't forget about it. It doesn't go away.
Well, I think this would also be an aid so that when we put the agenda together, we know what topics we want to, have for the next meeting as well. So. Madam?
I was gonna say during the parks round robin, but I just wanna say really quick, so in the minutes, there's a stabilization project, south of Creekside Park, and originally there was potential to include part of Creekside Park in it, and it's looking like now it ends right just south of Creekside Park, but there's still potential to include Creekside Park access as part of it, and there's an environmental analysis report with the city right now that's open for public comment. And so I think it's something that will come up sometime soon, but I don't have anything to propose or give you guys, but
Okay,
ongoing.
okay, a future agenda item?
Yeah,
Okay.
and if anyone wants to look at the environmental analysis, it's still open like just this week.
Okay, good. All right.
Is there a minimum age for someone that could own a park? Like if a high schooler or a mature middle schooler wanted to own the skate park, could that be a possibility?
Right now, I think you have that, don't you? Skate park?
No.
Oh, you
I don't think anyone,
Nobody has it?
I was wondering if maybe you would want to,
It's
Madeline.
right next to mine.
I think we need to revisit the name own, if we're gonna bring high schoolers and,
I think advocate is a
I
better
think
term.
having them become involved with that, but we have action items that probably have to be adult.
Okay.
That seems great to have at high school.
Yeah, just
an
watching
know,
out
advocate,
or,
and if
yeah.
they
There are
participated.
parks boards that sometimes include a youth member,
That would be awesome.
you know. All right, well, let's move on. Citizens' comments on matters within the board, again, 3 minutes each.
Do you think
Go,
that doesn't need to be in there twice?
No, we have never done that. I don't.
Well, then,
did that
let's not do it
get
anymore.
retyped Maybe by accident?
No, it's been in all the agendas.
Unless you want,
Yeah.
unless you want to say something wonderful
Comment
about
for
it at the
anything
end.
on the agenda first, and then there's citizen comment at the end for anything off the agenda.
Okay.
Oh,
and that's just kind of a Robert's Rules recommendation.
so it should be
Yeah.
on there.
Okay, we'll keep it on. All right,
No.
if no comments, the meeting's adjourned.
Right.
Night. Thank you all.
Thanks, Roger, for.
Roger, if I may have 2 minutes of your time.
Sure. Yeah.
That's really funny, one day.
Mike is off.
Yeah, he is. Doing a good job.